Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's done. The first season's done, right? We're talking about how we feel about watching this. The value of a series that that takes us behind the life story of somebody who took us on a journey a long, long time ago. So, Mags, you've been following this very, very closely. Dan, you've been watching along too, haven't you?
I have. Yeah, I watched the I yeah, I watched the whole thing except the last episode, but I know enough about it and I don't care about spoilers, so yeah.
Okay. So generally, the people have been. It's been a mixed bag. There's nobody's. I haven't heard many people say I love everything they've done with this show. I've heard both of you with your criticisms, and you know, let's just 10,000 foot view it. Is it worth watching? Having watched the whole thing? No.
My take was, if you're a Star Wars fan, you will watch it because you're a Star Wars fan.
Mm-hmm.
If I was to say, hey Andrew, I binge watched this series, it's great. Absolutely not. Stay away from it. I don't think it's a good piece of filmmaking.
So which side of the
It's a
argument
travesty.
did you ultimately land on? The whole Obi-Wan or Obi won't?
Obi
Sounds like Obi didn't.
Obi didn't.
That works too.
As much as I wanted it to work, I said in my review, if this whole series had episode 1 and episode 6 levels of Easter eggs and sort of sticking to the rules of Star Wars universe and its characters, then sure, the series would have worked. But something I didn't mention in the reviews, something that I found out later on, they tried to mirror every single episode in correspondence to the old and the new trilogy, so episode 1 till 6, which was quite clever, and obviously you do get the references when you think about it. However, you cannot have a good idea and then try so hard to write it for it to make sense, because it just didn't make sense. It was so bad. It was so bad.
So you're saying it was a bad piece of filmmaking. So you're saying the writing was a problem?
Yeah.
The acting, was the acting a problem?
No. Acting, that's the sad part, because you have talent on the screen. You have Ewan McGregor, who's a great actor. Of course, we don't only know him from Obi-Wan, but we know him from, Train Spotting. We know him from Moulin Rouge. We talked about Baz Luhrmann earlier. He's been in a lot of things, and to have him have this role reprised for this was a real shame. And it's not an excuse. It's in the hands of Disney, because Disney has showed it to us with Mandalorian how they can make it work, and they failed on this one. They wanted it too hard.
I noticed, because I haven't been watching Obi-Wan. I'm not a big Star Wars guy, but I did watch Moon Knight with you, and this was a show that was sort of edging its way into the MCU, and it was still kind of peripheral. They're saving the character just in, like we can use him in the future if we want. But I did feel like the production of that show really held it back. The writing wasn't fantastic. It felt just kind of like, ancillary content. It felt like bonus content, behind the scenes stuff to the universe.
Yeah.
Did this sort of reek of? Yeah, nice. Did this reek of that like low budget Disney fodder thing? Where it feels like an ABC drama or something.
Absolutely. That's exactly how it felt like. Because they also relied on the fact that Obi-Wan's character has been explored in many times, like many films before, and they tried to build up on that. And do you remember when we were sort of previewing this series, I was hoping that it's going to be like an interesting character study of Vader and Obi-Wan, that they will get very in deep and detail of how it must have been like. Turns out they just touched it on the surface. They tried to make a big thing out of it, but it didn't quite land. And
I wondered,
Dan, did you get the same thing as well from that? Did you get the character study at all?
That episode 1 was like a character study, and I think that was the only episode that was a character study. Everything else was, I feel like there was no character work from that point forward, other than whatever they tried to do for Leia, but they failed at trying to build Moses Ingram's character. Like Reva was, I thought,
she had some struggle. Have you guys heard about that? There was the whole...
She got bullied online, practically. Like, it's terrible because... that shouldn't happen ever. There's no reason, there's no excuse for basically, like, it was A, racist, and then B, at you know, you could call it bullying, you could call it whatever you want, you know. The fact of the matter is she's an actor playing a character. And
exactly.
And you know what? The character wasn't very well written. I think she's a fantastic actress. I think we first saw her in The Queen's Gambit. So now in this, she got hard done by the show so bad. The character had potential, so much potential, and some of the
is this something that is becoming a trend? Dan, you're watching Miss Marvel right now.
Yeah.
But there's no shortage of good actors in these things. Oscar Isaac, Ethan Hawke in Moon Knight, Ewan McGregor, fantastic actor. Like, the problem is clearly not the talent that they're getting or their ability to act. There's a lot of... Also, what?
Rupert Friend was in there. He's a great actor. He
didn't get much to do.
Exactly. How can you? Yeah.
The problem here seems to be the writing and the production. Is the cinematography anything to brag about?
Well, they're using the what's it called? The screen. Dan, help me out.
What do you mean?
The same
production
thing
design?
they use. The fold.
Oh,
what's the screen they?
The volume, the stagecraft, I think
volume.
is what ILM calls it, stagecraft. Yeah.
The volume, exactly. So that massively helped them out. And, you know, especially in the last episode, you really get to feel, okay, you're watching Star Wars. There was a still of it earlier. So you had the one of the starships chasing the smaller ship. And that really felt like Star Wars, but in a nice way, because it was something different, but at the same time, yeah. That scene, again, visually was spectacular.
Now here's another stylistic question.
That was episode 1 and episode 6.
Yeah.
You just cannot have those 2 episodes be so good or like very interesting. So there was some spoilers alert. I need to talk about this scene. There was a moment where we get to see Anakin's face underneath the Vader's mask. And they used this really great sound mixing design technique where, because essentially he was fighting with Obi-Wan and Obi-Wan damages his mask. So you get to hear Vader and Anakin's real voice like at the same time. And it was very powerful moment, I thought. And also the whole conversation and the closure that Obi-Wan got from it. Yeah, that's it. It was very well planned.
I like that.
Very well executed, but that was really it. That was, and that happened in the first 15 minutes of the episode.
Yeah.
And
let me ask you this: Did Hayden Christensen redeem himself?
Absolutely. They said that scene was the best piece of acting Hayden Christensen did ever in his career.
Wow.
And I topped that. It was incredible scene. I had goosebumps throughout the whole thing. But again,
okay, so it's not unredeemable. Do you think let's play this game? Mm-hmm. Let's say you edited this into one movie, cut out stuff that didn't need to be there. Would this be a good Star Wars film if they just turned it into another movie about Obi-Wan?
See, I think it would have been very difficult. Rogue One worked. So they did that with Rogue One. Rogue One was a standalone film that was happening around the same time as we get to watch, well, a bit later, when we get to watch Obi-Wan series. But it worked because it had completely new characters. Same thing happened with Mandalorian. Mandalorian works because they take ideas, they take possibilities from Star Wars without relying heavily on the characters that already existed, we can think of Han Solo, right? Solo movie. It flopped completely because they relied on the character that already existed. And is it cut out? Hello? Can you hear me?
Oh, it's just far away.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, it was just a shame that they did not try to make more out of this series. I don't think, to answer your question in the short term, no, I don't think the turning into a film would have worked. Perhaps these characters there was not enough to explore in that time. It wasn't very probable also for Obi-Wan and Vader to have met. But having said that, that was also interesting when Obi-Wan said his goodbyes, whatever, to Anakin / Vader, and he realized that this is it, this is final it. He called him Darth, and this is essentially perfectly aligned with what Episode 4 showed, because when we see Sir Alec Guinness meeting Vader, he calls him as Darth. There is no friendship, there's nothing, and it did help to fill in that hole, but that just would not be enough to make a film. Like film would just feel empty.
I actually disagree. Like, I
Really?
think this. Well, so here's what I disagree and I agree. I think if you just take episode 1 and 6 and turn it into a movie, there's not enough there because there's not enough character development happening. There's a lot that you miss out that they did do or tried to do or did wrong in episodes 2 through 5. So I do believe that they should have made this a movie, which, by the way, this was always supposed to be a movie initially.
Right.
And it's because Solo ended up flopping. I don't know if you guys mentioned this earlier, but that's when they completely reset everything and then they decided they wanted to turn this into a show. And I'm sure they had the script that they had written for the movie influence what they ended up with here. So clearly there was a plan for this to be a movie at some point, and I highly doubt that the whole plot of that film would have been go rescue Princess Leia because she got kidnapped and now you have to go get her back. I'm pretty sure the movie would have focused much more on Obi-Wan himself, his adventures, Qui-Gon Jinn coming back somehow, things of that nature.
Yeah, but
but
not somehow. That made perfect sense, actually.
I'm fine with that. I actually, and this is obviously it's a huge spoiler, and we put up a warning earlier, so hopefully you were protecting your eyes if you didn't know about this. But
the wig was awful.
But the point I'm trying to make is the show should have always focused on this man on screen right now, Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ben Kenobi, whatever you want to call him. That's what the show should have always been about. It should have been about his story. I said this on Instagram earlier. We had quite a bit of interaction on our recent episode 6 review for the show that Max did. And basically, I said this. Look, Obi-Wan Kenobi's story is in essence a tragedy. It's like Shakespearean tragedy. It's all about him failing on multiple occasions, on multiple accounts, whether it was first failing to see Anakin Skywalker turning to the dark side, then failing to either turn him around or neutralize him as a threat, letting him persist, and then ultimately, I mean, and even in this show, it shows you he does kind of let Darth Vader kind of survive, and he could have finish the job, if you will, and then he later on has
he's the
Luke.
Jedis don't kill. That's what everyone completely gets wrong. Everyone keeps having the same argument. Obi-Wan should have killed Vader. No, that's never the point of Jedi. You're meant to defend. He weakened him, and that was my argument on Instagram. He psychologically won the battle. Essentially, he did not give him enough of even. He didn't entertain this to even interact with him. He just walked off. It was like you're nothing.
But the point I'm trying to make persists, right? Like if you made this a movie, you could have made this about his. Episode 1 was some of the darkest, most emotionally hard-hitting stuff I've seen from Star Wars ever, because it was all about how Obi-Wan Kenobi was living in this world that lacks any sense of hope, and he himself lacks any sense of purpose. Like beyond just kind of, he was just playing a waiting game, and then in that waiting game, he's just waiting for basically Luke to start showing, like basically that he's force sensitive, right? That's the idea, and that in and of itself, can you imagine the mindset of this guy after everything that has happened? The fall from grace that is Obi-Wan Kenobi's story, right? Like and that alone, I think, should have been the focus of the whole show. Of the whole movie, if it were to be a movie, that should have then led us into, well, now he goes on an adventure, and it somehow ties into where we find him in the next time you see him in the original movie, 1970s Star Wars. But that should be it. That should be. We don't need Princess Leia. We don't need this whole side quest. We don't need to introduce the character of Reva. I think Darth Vader should have been utilized better and more sparsely.
Yeah.
There's so many things they could have done differently.
Just because I think we got to wrap this up, but this is something that I've noticed with a lot of shows like Better Call Saul. The sheer coincidence that all these people happen to have their lives intertwined before we knew them. You know, all of these convenient scenes where we can put these two characters together. I find it more annoying than anything. It feels like a kid who happens to have a Superman action figure and a Spider-Man action figure, and in his mind, they also are hanging out, eating pizza, or whatever.
It was very pushed. They tried to mask it as well for the inconsistencies to really make sense. You could feel how much they tried to hide it, but it just did not serve the plot.
And it continues to make the world of Star Wars, this universe, really small. If it's a galaxy of, it feels like a really small galaxy because everybody knows everybody, and somehow I get like there's history there, right? But
sure.
But give me something new. Like I want to see you expand the universe, not shrink it.
But that's what we have with Mandalorian.
Do we have any hopes for a Jar Jar series?
Oh.
I totally would be game.
I would be absolutely. You know what? That's the one I would watch. Let's do 6 episodes of Jar Jar, please. George Lucas, if you're listening.
There was like
6 episodes.
Expanded
Jar Jar
canon book that kind of gives us a really tragic look at what Jar Jar ultimately ended up as, and like just basically the pins of society.
The lore exists.
It's not a canon officially.
Well, they slowly essentially eradicated him from movies. Like he had less and less relevance.
You want to talk about like a wormhole to go down? We need 6 episodes of Jar Jar. Stat. If Minions can do this well, Jar Jar can
would break records
as well.
Simply because people are gonna hate watch the show.
Absolutely.
And just it would be like watching Batman and Robin for 6 episodes in a row. You're like, it is so bad, but it is so hilarious that I can't stop looking. I can't look away. Like that's what that would be, and I can't wait. He is the first.
Fair warning,
CGI
Lucasfilm. If you don't make it, we will.
Yeah, we should.
6 episodes of Jar Jar. Get it trending. Hashtags. If you're watching, share the video. Hashtag it. 6 episodes of Jar Jar. We want it. This is what the world needs. Okay, I think we pretty much get how we feel about Obi-Wan. If you have other feelings, if you liked what we said, if you didn't like what we said, if you want to fight us in the comments, we're up for the fight. Follow us, comment, like, subscribe. We're everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify? I always forget. I don't know.
Yeah, we are.
Podcast place. We're on Spotify. Look at that. We're all over the place. Be our friend. Hang out with us. Be part of the show. Be part of this movie community. I was almost perfect and then, slipped. Okay.